Hey everyone, my name's Andy from Finding Value Finance. I'll be your host today. We've got Kasper or USELINK INV from Twitter. Thanks for coming back on, Kasper. Really wanted to get your opinions on some things. I know you were reaching out, wanting to talk about energy. So, what's going on? What are you seeing in the markets? I know we're kind of diving right in, but thanks for coming on. What do you see in the energy markets?
I think again, energy for the past year or two hasn't been doing well when we're looking at oil. Gas is actually slowly looking good now, but again, gas and oil hasn't been looking great. Uranium spot price has also come down a lot. So there is some setups where if they can start to mature in 2025, I think especially oil, of course, the big guy, if it can start to do certain things that I see in the charts, I think it could setting up during 2025 and actually have a great 2026, 27, a longer term uptrend. But again, we need the breakouts and the charts to give us that entry or direction. But if that's the case, I think energy as a whole could do really well in the near future. So.
And when you say energy, you are including uranium, coal, natural gas, oil. Is it
Yes, and
are
actually
you
also hydrogen as a little bit of a
hydrogen?
higher risk kind of reward kind of play, because hydrogen, this is the ETF by the way, it's trying to break a downtrend, so maybe there will be something for in a year out or so, but yeah, hydrogen also.
Okay, so what in particular are you seeing in the setup that is getting you more bullish versus a year ago or whatever? What's transpiring right now that's getting you bullish in say the oil market, which is the granddaddy?
Yeah, the big one. I will share the screen, so let me know if it's ready.
You are ready. It's
Cool.
good.
So oil, I think we will have a tiny bit of history, not the biggest one because we have been, again, I think most people or your viewers knows, the again the big breakout that happened in again roughly around here in 2022, where we broke this whole trend line here after three big macro impulses. This was the financial crisis, and then you had the big breakdown here in 2014, and then obviously what happened in 2020, the big spill where basically oil went negative, and had a huge snapback. And ever since it's broke out, basically has been trading downwards, but within an ordinary manner. So the reason why I start to see that we could have a potential breakout here for oil. Um, I will say this though, I might be until we start to trade above, I want to have it here roughly, there it is, roughly 71.5. At that point in time, I'm leaning a little bit more bearish, but if we can start to trade above it, it becomes more and more uh, bullish. But right now, a tiny bit more bearish. But what I would like to see for 2025, especially if we can get it, in the first quarter of 2025, is basically having this whole triangle break to the upside and start to trade for some time above roughly 77, close to 80, basically starting to trade here. If we start to see that and we start to consolidate here, I think it's setting up for a good second half in 2025, and then it will spill into larger moves, 2026, 2027. Um, but again, we need the break to happen. Again, we need to resolve this whole triangle to the upside because there's still the possibility, and I know many people are looking at it as oh, excuse me, as a potential big topping pattern here. This whole head and shoulders. Many people has been shown that, and it is still valid. Um, but the plus side is we are trading above that 20-year, roughly 20 years support. So as long as that is holding, you will not see the big spills in oil. Um, so that is my
It's
case here. Yeah.
that'd be Francis Hunt, huh?
Yeah, he's and also I respect him a lot. He's really good at what he does. I mean, don't get me wrong, and it is clear as day, right? So if we start to break down from the neckline here, again, things could be start to looking iffy, and we should probably expect also a move down to like 60, 55 maybe. And obviously, if that doesn't hold, and that at that point in time we could see a huge puke. But if that's the case, I'm expecting similar troubles as we saw in 2020. So you can, again, what will be the name of that crisis, right? Because if that's the case, we're having a crisis, right at the doorstep. Um, because whenever oil starts to tank, that is always bad, and we have a crisis. It's just going to be what will be the name, or yeah, for the crisis basically. So yeah.
So the thing that I'm a so I self-identify as a hybrid in investor where I use fundamentals and I use technicals. Um, the way that I view oil is that anything below 70 will only be a temporary move because your break-even points around the world to bring on new production is about $70 a barrel around the world. It doesn't mean it can't go below that, but if it does, I view it as a temporary spot where you should be buying as much as you physically or possibly can be in equities and all that stuff. That's the way that I've always viewed it. So when I look at that squeeze, the only thing they can do is like throw us into a recession to try to bring it down for a temporary move. And that's all they can do. They can't actually hold it down.
Oh,
My
I mean,
view.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, even though we are going heavy into EVs and all that, we are still consuming. I mean, the amount of decrease in oil that we are seeing right now, it, it, it's not zero, but again, it's basically nothing. So, oil is by far still the most used energy, and also the most important energy that we have and will have for decades to come. So,
Yeah, I'm just stating that like Norway, which they they've got the largest adoption of EVs and their oil consumption goes up, not down.
oh, really? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
Yes. So the
yeah,
ones that have the largest adoption of EVs, their oil consumption is still going up. So I think that's gonna, yeah.
yeah.
So that's what I'll say there. So longer term, bigger picture view, squeezing up into the corner, we could potentially have a false breakdown, is what I think could happen.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if we clear 7150, you're getting more and more bullish as we go up and up and up. Correct?
Yeah, because yeah, correct. You can see here we have a somewhat of a clear level here where we have this whole range. We did peak above it for a tiny bit, but basically since September, that is 4 months roughly, we have been trading sideways. So all that, and no pun intended, energy here will soon be, pushed one way or the other. And you can actually see here today that we are closing at 71. So we actually tagged 71.5 intraday here and got pushed back a tiny bit. But if we can start to trade above here and hold, we don't want this to be like a iceberg peak above, start to hold here, that gives us the option or possibility that we can actually start and attack that big long-term rail that we have down here, and hopefully in Q1 start to trade healthy above that 70, 75, 78, level. So one way or the other, the move that we will see in oil will be somewhat swift, but also a big one, in my opinion. So again, any break to the downside will be really bad, and we could have that mega spill recession. If we break to the upside again, we have 4 years of energy, and it will usually the first big target is the triangle high. Again, not tomorrow, not 2025, but again 2026, we could start to see, those levels again for oil. Maybe 2027 because it is 4 years. So, but still, that is the big one to clear.
We had a recession in 2000 to 2001, and that had 9/11 baked into it. That's when they hit the towers and it sold off dramatically right when that occurred. But we still had a big move up. So that is what I think could be possible, but I'm not sure if we have another 9/11 event or something like that. Yeah, it's right where right where
I
it
think it,
dipped
I think it's
was the
right
9/11 event.
around 9/11. That's here, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yep,
That's
September
actually a good,
'01.
yeah, that's similar-ish, actually. That's very
Yep.
similar, to be honest. This whole on a smaller time frame. I haven't seen that before. That's actually a very good point. Where you have this whole
It's the same
triangle
pattern.
topping pattern, spill, snap back, and then you go. So
And that's what I
so yeah,
think could
that
happen.
that's a good point actually. I haven't really been noting that. And also similar-ish. Again, you have that whole breakout
Yeah,
where you consolidate above, you have a big spill into that, and then you rally. So that's a nice one. I didn't. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
the same setup.
Yeah. So
And it's
again,
possible. It doesn't mean it will happen.
no, no, for sure not. But it's a good point. I haven't
But if
seen
it
that
does
before. So
occur, the way I see it, if it does occur with the yield curve, which means a lot of these guys they probably positioned into bonds right before it, that they knew what was coming before it came. Like it was an inside job because
and I actually think
the yield
TLT is
curve was
also.
dropping at that time.
Yeah, I think TLT is also. Is it breaking out today or yesterday? Last week again. So
Not
maybe
TLT.
is it the TLT that we're breaking
TLT
out?
was breaking down, not up.
Was it? Oh, okay.
Um,
Maybe I'm
we
mixing.
were up today, but Monday today, if you want to know the exact date.
Oh yeah, it broke down. I can see that. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So yeah, but again, in order to have the energy sector go, we need oil again. Oil will be the big one, the leader.
Where do you
So
think oil can go if we get a break or when we get a break to the upside? If or when? How high do you think this thing, like what's the potential upside and where do you think we'll eventually end up?
again, it's always a time frame question, right? What is your time frame? I think once we break, if we break here, the obvious target, at least from the way I do things, is always that triangle high there. Massive resistance there. It will happen over. We have a dates thing here. So it will take somewhere like again into 2020, end of 2026, we could see that level before that. Um, and again, big resistance, so you would have a pushback there. But again, once we start to, let's say we start to rally here and we can actually have a pushback, so we can actually start to break that whole structure, which we will see here in 2027, 2028. And then you start to look at the bigger moves. And again, you have some price projections again where you can start to put them on
Going to
top and
cup
you
and
can start,
handle.
yeah, you can start to see where it can take us. But again, it's not tomorrow or this year or next year. Again, it will be we could break that, 3, 5 years out. We could start to see the break here and then go higher. Again, will that happen? I don't know, but yeah, these are the moves that this initial little breakout here could be the precursor. Looking back, that was the big one to get into to oil.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're only like 8% away. Um, does that mean we will get it? We shall see. But again, we are 10% away from that breakout, getting above the 77 and above that whole rail. And that's when you start to look to the upside. Until then, it's basically consolidation, and we need to wait which way it's going to break.
Yeah. So some of the things that I look at when oil is gaining steam or momentum is I usually look at the ETFs and see if people are positioning in them. And then I also look at the ETFs divided by the commodity itself.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
So, what are you seeing any positive signs in the ETFs and accumulation or movements upward and or of the ratio?
I haven't really been looking at that, for the past few weeks, so I wouldn't be able to give my views on that. Maybe for a different video when that happens, but right now I don't have an analysis on that, so I wouldn't be able to give my view on that. So
Gasoline.
gasoline
I see you
again,
got it up there. Yeah.
similar again to the whole oil, but again, just want to pinpoint that again, we have roughly 4 months of coiling up here. And if gasoline starts to move again, could be a sign that oil will follow. I don't know how if it starts to move before or after. I don't know how that whole chain is set up, but again, gasoline here is also setting up for a move, a big one. Either way, it's going to be a big pop from that whole 4 months worth of sideways stuff there. So big moves are coming for oil, guaranteed. Well, not guaranteed, but with a high likelihood, right? In Q1, maybe Q2, if they really can stretch it out that far.
The way I view gasoline, though, I mean, right now our gasoline is super cheap, and I mean, it's so cheap that I have to think back to like COVID times, like
Oh, really?
2020, for gasoline to be that cheap. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So I can't see how this would break down. I mean, if it breaks down, I mean, we've got gasoline that's back in like the 90s, 2000s, 90s, where it's like a dollar something a gallon. I'd find that really hard to believe. And there's no way it could stay down there for any long period of time, I would imagine. But we are super cheap on gasoline here in America.
Oh, really? Because in Denmark, I think we peaked out at roughly, I have to convert here, but $2, $2.3 or so per liter in Denmark. And now we're sitting at like a tad below two, and we have been doing that for like 2 years, I think. So
We are $2, 30, 40, 50 cents a gallon
a gallon, yeah,
here
very cheap. Yeah, wow, okay.
compared to you guys. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
a
exactly. Yeah,
quarter,
this is only one
quarter of the
liter,
price.
so
Or
yeah, wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what else did you want to talk about? I think natural gas is looking probably pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, nat gas here had a setup that I've been waiting for a long time. And actually, in November, it finally, gave the long signal for me at least. When I'm only trading the exact commodity, we started to trade above $3 for the nat gas. This is nat gas, by the way, not the Dutch one. And this was the setup that we're looking at here. We tagged it again, head and shoulders with the bull flag. We finally broke $3, and there you have a triggered measured move all the way up to roughly $6, which also coincides with this huge triangle, what I like to call the waterfall level, because whenever you have a squeeze either way and you start to collapse in this case, usually when you get back to there, there's a lot of that's the resistance. So I'm having a target right now of gas on that gas at like $6, and that is 50% away from here, if my math serves me correctly. Yeah, 50%. Um,
Do you expect that to get to $6, or I mean, is that a high probability? You think that break's going to move up there? And I mean, that's what the projected move is. I'm just
yeah,
thinking from a fundamental perspective. That's $6 is quite a bit
yeah, it
for nat
is. And I
gas.
mean, and gas, is it's probably one of the most difficult commodities to predict. It can easily overshoot um, because of the market and the way, the whole supply chain is set up. It can easily overshoot. And actually, also, if I were to do the measured move here on a log scale, you can see that we are getting a tad higher, like 6.5. So, so yeah, that is my target for gas. And at that point in time, we will see what happens. Hopefully, we come down a bit and we can buy into the next hopefully the next rally for gas. And these are Heikin-Ashi weekly candles. They are a bit different compared to normal candles, but basically once you start to have a green candle with no wick on the bottom, that is a bullish Heikin-Ashi candle, meaning you have a bullish weekly uptrend. And as long as that is intact, you just sit tight and you are hopefully right. Um, so yeah, nat
We
gas
have a
looks
we
good.
have a ton of LNG takeaway capacity coming on 2025 here for America,
Okay,
a whole
okay,
bunch. And then they're
yeah,
they're trying to build all these AI data centers too in a lot of the natural gas areas. So we got tons of demand coming for natural gas.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
yeah, long term it looks really good the way that
Yeah, and
I
also short term, I saw or read that you're having some cold weather coming in, right? Or is it just, or was it, isn't
yeah,
that true? The next few weeks you're having some very cold weather, so yeah.
Yeah, that's what the forecasts are. Um, so how does natural gas tie into maybe something like coal? Because coal's basically an alternative to natural gas for electricity generation.
Yeah. I mean, coal, I had high hopes for coal and actually breaking out here in 2024. And the setup that I looked at that point in time was basically we had obviously the big collapse together with gas. Everything came down really hard. Oil, gas, everything came down from 2022 into 2023. We finally started to move sideways, and then we started to have this little yellow sideways triangle. And I was saying, anything above, 152, extremely bullish. However, we didn't break, we actually broke down. So gas here is a little bit under pressure. Excuse me, coal is a little bit under pressure here compared to nat gas, for instance. Um, and I'm just, again, my setup right now is waiting for this blue line to break. Until then, I'm just sitting, waiting. We could have a scenario where we are actually getting that big, this is 2011, 18, and we are actually having that big retest, which we haven't had since we broke out here in 2021. So we could see a move all the way down to like 105. And I will say, if you get down to there, if you want to get into coal, great option or great opportunity there with a massive, 15-year trend line retest, basically. Um, so yeah, coal here again could be going to a tad above 100. But if we start to curl higher here all of a sudden and getting back above the blue, somewhat of a neckline similar to what we saw in gas, then again,
Mhm.
above like 150, I will say coal becomes bullish. Um, but again, if oil starts to move, I'm very confident that all energy sector commodities will do well at some
Is
point
there
in
any
time.
way that could you overlay oil on top of coal here and just to see from the 2020 bottom if how much coal either outperformed or underperformed oil? I
Yeah,
think it
sure.
outperforms it, but
Yeah,
and if you
coal was
yeah, if you just
actually,
start
yeah,
what if you started at 2020, like the bottom there? If you're to yeah, like that.
yeah.
Yeah, they're real
You,
close.
Yeah,
They're
but
real
also the
close.
correlation is just insane, right? I mean, it's just
Yep.
not picture perfect, but again, you can see the nature that they are both very similar. So if we get oil getting that breakout, I mean, coal should follow. Not right away. Shouldn't Doesn't have to do it right away, but it will come due to the correlation. And uh,
I
and yeah,
also
and what yeah,
I don't know if you've ever done this. Have you ever run a coal to natural gas ratio?
I haven't, but we at least it's
I've
been a
never run one
while, but
after I think well maybe I've run it a long time ago because that's really what they compete against, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's coal against nat gas.
I will do this is actually good here. So
Yeah.
coal is slightly outperforming, over long term, but
Mhm.
we should also start to see it might be a little bit early here, but again, some outperformance by coal potentially. Do we have some sort of
Yeah,
depending on
I'm
how
trying
you
to do something too with my eyes. I'm like, maybe we got
yeah
some there, maybe we got some put
it,
across.
it's not picture perfect by any means, but again, you could argue that we are coming to a point where after a lot of selling of coal compared to gas, that yeah, potentially. But again, very mixed, very weird chart. So it is again.
Yeah, and how does uranium fit in this? Oh, there you go.
There you go. That's the
Nice
sweet
little
spot.
channel.
24 is the sweet spot where you want to flip, actually. If we
If
if
it
we get
gets
down
that
to
low,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, if we get down to 24, coal will probably, again, it's all probabilities, a better play at that point in time compared to gas. Depending on how we get there, it could be 25, it could be 24, but yeah.
Man, load up.
That's a
Yeah, I
beautiful
heard
channel, actually. That's beautiful.
coal's been some of the best performers during commodity bull markets.
Yeah.
That's
And coal stocks were, I don't quote me on this, was by far one of the best performing assets in like 2021, 2022. BTU, for instance, went up, like a bazillion percent or so. It was just crazy. So, So yeah.
So uranium, fitting in this to uranium as well. What are you seeing there?
Again, this is the uranium spot price. And I will quickly go to the standard candles because we have a huge gap from basically like 100 to 130 here, where we started to tank heavily back in 2007. So that's a huge gap, and we basically kissed it here, traded a bit into it, and then we started to come down. Um, I can see here that we're actually trading closer to like 30, 71 here, meaning we're actually below the high from over here. Not ideal, um, but we are potentially making this little bull flag here. But yeah, we have come down. I will say further than I would have been anticipated, when we started to peak out. I would have thought that we were going to see at least a bounce here at the 2011 high, which we didn't see. Could this be due to Christmas and all that, low volume? Maybe. But definitely uranium is coming down. Um, and yeah, we need this whole bull flag to resolve to the upside. And I think we need oil to have a reason for, I wouldn't say a reason, but again, to have help from oil to push it higher again. Um, so it is not a bad looking chart, don't get me wrong. Long term, beautiful chart. But it has stalled out quite a bit here for basically the entire 2024. Uh, we actually peaked
One,
early, right? Yeah, January
yeah,
2024, we peaked out and then we've just been sliding. So
one thing I look at is I priced crude oil versus uranium, the futures
yeah,
pricings against each other.
I
I've
saw
got
that.
it
Yeah.
being positive for crude oil.
Yeah, I saw that
It's
one actually. Yeah.
like it's just breaking out.
Yeah.
So
Oh, we have a large. So this is the, we can do the inversion here. It doesn't matter. So you can see here, it's basically trying to peak above this whole
yep.
little short-term ceiling here. Long term, it looks more in favor of uranium actually, but we're talking many more years compared to now. But short term, I'm definitely seeing some outperformance by oil.
What makes you think that uranium is going to outperform crude oil
It
when you
is,
say longer term?
if I can, again, it's basically based on this here. Forget about that whole, again,
Yeah,
noise, 2020 ratios
I
got
hate
skewed all
that.
over the place. Yeah. Also, because
I
if you
hate
try
that thing
to
when charting. They need to
zoom
take
out,
that
you
out.
you get that, it's
I
very
know.
annoying.
It's
So
freaking annoying.
yeah, but as long as we're basically holding above that thing there, it favors uranium long term. But if we can start to push it down here, yeah, sure. Again, you could have a scenario where you try to break out and you're actually bear flagging and you're going lower. So yeah,
Do you think long term that uranium is going to outperform crude oil?
I yeah, I do think so. Again, not all the time, obviously, because I think uranium is I wouldn't say more volatile, but again, it has its moments where it just starts to go on a grind heavily, like we have seen until basically the peak in 2024. But yeah, this whole, again, I wish I had more data really. I wish I could see further back. Um, but if we put on some, again, we have to go to the monthly, I guess. So monthly here, it's still sloping up in favor of uranium, and until that changes for me, that is still a better setup. Again, you could argue that this whole thing here is also, again, it just quickly drawn here. So for now, it is setting up for a better play, looking at the monthly timeframes. Um, that could change, obviously.
Yeah, when I look at this, I look at it like it is a channel going sideways.
Mm.
And if you draw the channel at the top of like say 2009 going straight across, um, I see things kind of like bouncing from cheap to expensive, like depending on what you use.
Yeah,
But so when I look at 2014, 2018, that would have been good to go long in uranium. And then now is good to go long in crude oil because we're at such a high ratio. But that's the way that I view it.
Yeah, I
And
agree. If it can push back below, the upper blue here, definitely we should have a favorable moment for what's it called for oil. So, but I'm seeing this more as like a big, 15-year triangle fractal breaking out and trying to flip it as support and then going higher. That is my view, anyways. But we need the breakout high to take out basically that one there before we get the breakout retest confirmation and going higher. But yeah, it does look a little bit heavy here on the shorter time frames. You can see we're starting to look into favor into oil.
I do think uranium is going to do well over the longer term, though, for
Yeah,
sure.
for sure, it is. But I will say that this though, 2024, especially the miners, has underperformed massively from what I would have thought. Going into 2024, looking at especially the uranium spot price, where basically it went up. Through the entire 2023, it went up a lot, but miners just couldn't start the outperformance. And funnily enough, there is an ETF that we just talked about before we went on. A An ETF that is having a lot of it's called Nukes NUKSC, excuse me, and that is basically uranium infrastructure, laser enrichment, SMRs, all that good stuff, but no miners at all. And it has done really well in 2024, up like 60-70%. So miners, huge disappointment in 2024, and I did not see that going into 2024. I'm not gonna sit here and say that because I was really bullish at that moment in time, but hey, so
I would think maybe nukes trades like technology,
yeah,
and the
yeah,
uranium miners trades like a commodity.
yeah, for sure.
Maybe.
That makes a lot of sense. I completely agree. So yeah,
You also have, was it hydrogen as
hydrogen. Yeah,
well?
this is an ETF. It's not the commodity, but I think at some point in time there will be a speculative play here, investment into uranium, excuse me, hydrogen, because we are having this 2.5 year downtrend. And I think we're seeing some signs that we could start to turn and actually break that downtrend. So, again, if we're having oil doing the heavy lifting, hydrogen will do well. It did really well also from 2020 to 2021. 2022, you can see the peak here. So it will do well when the energy sector is getting a bit. So potentially, if we start to trade again above 26, 27 on a weekly basis, I will say there will be hopefully some good setups there for the ETF, but also the stocks itself. But this is more, again, hydrogen is very difficult and also more speculative compared to oil, gas, and coal. But yeah, I'm having my eyes on it, and when I see the correct setup, I will definitely try to take advantage of that potential move to the upside. Yeah, so
So here's my questions then. Energy related only, the ones that we've covered today. Gasoline, nat gas, coal, oil, hydrogen, uranium. What are some things that surprised you about 2024 and the performance of these? And looking forward in 2025, what do you think will be top performers? What do you think will be bottom performers in the energy space? So 2024, then 2025. What are your thoughts?
uh, 2024, I will say the how long it took for coal to actually show signs, a really good bottom, and then for now at least having it to fail. Waiting, like a year and a half for a potential, investment into coal, and then having it to fail, as you can see here. This is coal, right? We're basically having roughly 18 months worth of sideways stuff here, and I really hope for that break above, 100 and 52, but we didn't get it. So that was very disappointing. And also the battle, you can say, between the Bulls and the Bears for 2024 here. The Bears has won, but again, it 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 seems like they're trying to push it below water, and it just pops straight back up. So they might have a successful attempt here, in Q1 2025, but the again, basically we've gone sideways for like 2 years, more or less, right? And it's just a fun battle to see, and no one is winning, not decisively, anyways. So that is basically my views, and also, even though gas and a coal and oil hasn't been doing well for the past 2 years. If you're looking at most of the stocks that is having there are involved in gas and oil, they have done okay. I mean, they haven't been collapsing by any means. So they have been somewhat resilient to a 2 year dry spell in the commodity itself. So they are making money. Otherwise, they would be coming down hard. So yeah. But remember, if you're having 2 years worth of basically sideways action, that energy is gonna pop up or down very violently when it finally does pop. So
2025, what are your expectations? What do you think will outperform, what will underperform? And it's okay. I'm not going to hold you
no, no, no,
personally
for sure.
accountable
I,
if it doesn't pan out that way. This is just a something that you can take a guess at and
yeah.
see how it turns out.
Again, nat gas right now, I'm long. I'm very bullish on gas here. I have that $6 target. I think if oil breaks out, as we talked about in the early part of the video, I think it will actually help gas a tiny bit to reach that target faster. But again, it all depends. I will say I would be surprised if oil starts to trade above 100. That would be, again, somewhat extreme still. But I wouldn't be surprised if we are to see, big spikes into like the 90s coming back again just to digest that move. Um, so again, it's difficult to say which one will outperform. I think if oil breaks out, I think each of the on the coal, gas, and all that will do well at different periods of time, where one takes over and then it's like a rotation play here. But uh, but yeah, we need oil to do the heavy lifting. Otherwise, I don't think the big guys will invest into energy, XLE, XOP, and all those, these ETFs. We need oil, the big mama, to yeah, to basically break out. So, and I think that will happen in Q1 because you can see we have the triangle. I mean, we don't have a lot of space left in here. This is roughly April, so we have at maximum 4 months maximum to decide. Um, so yeah, I do think the longer it stalls out, the more it favors a move to the downside. So the bulls have to fight here for January and February, maybe March.
So if you were to order them best performance to worst performance, just for the heck of it for 2025, what would be your guess?
I, I could go with nat gas as the best performer because it's already now looking good. Again, if you're having oil breaking out, gas will could have that very big pop as well into the energy. Worst performer, I will have to go with coal, given the recent breakdown. It will do well at some point. Don't get me wrong, if we have that energy, investment thesis back. But right now, since we broke down here, it needs more time. Whereas uranium, again, is still heavily in an uptrend, and right now is flagging here. So the sooner it can start to break, the better. But yeah, I will say coal probably, given the recent events here, is going to underperform compared to the others.
All right. Well, I mean, that's kind of all the questions I had. What do you have anything else that you'd like to share with all the viewers?
No, I mean, as we talked about, the big one for me with regarding to this whole thesis that 2025 could be the precursor to a good 26 and 2027, and maybe a bit more, is to get close to that $80 level for oil and confirm there, not just spiking up, just peaking up, hello, and then go down again. That would be devastating. So trading close to 80 for a period of time, setting up for a good few years here potentially for oil. And yeah, hopefully we'll be able to, again, also you being able to take advantage of that because there are many ways to doing that by ETFs and stocks and the commodities and futures. So hopefully we will have energy back again here after 3 years of basically not doing so well.
And if people want to follow your work, where do they go? How do they follow you?
As always on X, USELINKINV. Same thing goes for YouTube and on Substack. And again, I have subscribers both on Substack, but also on YouTube now because some people want to use YouTube compared to Substack. But again, yeah, you can do that on YouTube, but also on Substack if you want to. And again, that is where we try to take advantage of these hopefully breakouts that we're going to see in energy.
Okay. Well, that's all I've got, guys. So we'll catch everyone later. See ya.